All right, so this is the Perfect Your LinkedIn Profile workshop. Today is 11/5/18. It's Monday. Thank you all for joining us at the beginning of what I'm sure is a busy week for you all, and taking some time out of your day to work on this together. My name is Martin. I'm a career advisor here at Udacity, and I'm also a content marketer. You might see some of the videos that we've been creating for the careers team popping up on LinkedIn lately, especially if you're on there trying to improve your profile. My entire goal is to help people capture and get noticed in their field. And so that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, how to actually create a LinkedIn profile that not only gets you found in search, but helps you attract and engage the people that you want to be connecting with in your field, so that you can actually make that next career move or advance in your job or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So I'd love to do a little pulse check here and see from the 121 participants we have on our call, how are you feeling about your profile right now? On a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being not so strong, we'll get a good pulse and a good sense of what we need to be covering based off this poll. All right, can everyone see the poll in my shared screen, or is it only sharing my desktop? Everyone can see the poll. Wonderful. 80% of you have voted, so we're going to give a little bit of time here for you to vote. Karen will end and publish it in just a bit. All right. Great, we're all viewing the poll results here. So we've got about 19% of you feeling not very strong about your profiles, about 16% of you feeling not strong, a little bit more confident. We got 39% of you, the majority of you, just feeling okay about your profiles. 23% feeling good. All right, we got some positive, optimistic. And we got 4% feeling great, but I'm sure they still want to learn a few tips and tricks to really round out the edges. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating in the poll today. It looks like we've got the majority of you feeling okay about your profile. You've got it in a good spot, but you maybe don't feel like it's tailored as specifically to what you're hoping to accomplish in your career goals. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Not only why you need it, but how to make it as focused as possible so that you can achieve what you want to achieve. All right. Oh, stop sharing and close. Great. So I'll jump into the agenda here today. We're going to start by going through the basics of LinkedIn, why you need to be on LinkedIn and what you need on your profile. Not only just from a general sense, but also some of the statistics behind it, so you really know why it's important to be here. We're going to then jump into our live feedback. We've actually got 2 alumni. One is driving, so we're going to go through 2 alumni profiles, and we're going to really analyze their profiles and their career goals to figure out, you know, they might be in good shape, but how do we make it even better? Or they might be, you know, really hoping to maybe even do an overhaul. We'll see when we get into it. And so you'll get to see a live critique of how to make your profile as strong as possible. The basics here of what we're trying to take away from this live feedback is, what can you do when you're looking at your profile? What is the perspective you can take to make sure you're making it as strong as possible? And then we'll open it up to everyone. We've got about 130 people on this call, so I'm hoping some of you will be courageous and share your LinkedIn URL and let us pull up your profile and maybe take a look at your summary, or take a look at your experience, or take a look at your education, and start giving some really quick tips that will engage the whole group and not just have us be talking at you, but make it a little bit more interactive. And then finally, we're gonna touch on how current students can submit their project and get credit, as well as get an expert to review their profile. And that is a requirement of your program. So it's gonna be really great to just kind of go through that and make sure that you're able to accomplish that piece of your program, and also get that feedback and make your profile look as amazing as possible. All right, let's start with the basics. Why do you need to be on LinkedIn? Well, I know in the poll we didn't give you an option for I don't have a LinkedIn, because the very baseline of anyone who's in the job market at all is to just have a basic profile. Back in the day, we actually did this really big test to see what made the biggest difference in someone's profile. Was it a great summary? Was it a great skills section? Was it a lot of recommendations? And the main thing that separated people who were successful in their career goals and not successful in their career goals was just having a LinkedIn in general, because it's the first place that recruiters and potential employers are going to go to figure out who you are, see your picture, see your experience, and make that connection to bringing you in. So here's a few stats to toss at you to get your wheels turning. 260 million people are active on LinkedIn. 61 million are senior level influencers, which means if you're on the LinkedIn platform, there is just a huge opportunity to connect with senior level influencers. 40 million are in decision-making positions. So if you're sitting there applying to job boards and you're not getting much activity, interaction, feedback, positive engagement through those job boards, which honestly most people don't get a lot of great feedback from job boards, LinkedIn is the place to go because you can actually connect with the real people who make the decisions. There's 26 million companies with 15 million active jobs, and more than 90% of recruiters use LinkedIn regularly. Basically, it's the largest social network for your career. And so we want to be on there, and we want to look good on there, and we want to be focused on what our goals are. And now that we know that we need to be there, what do you actually need to have on it? LinkedIn has this great little marker on their profile that says, how complete is your profile? And of course, we want to get to 100%, but there's a lot of different sections on your profile and a lot of different things to fill out. So what is necessary and what's not on your profile? Well, here's a few stats to think about. If you have a professional headshot, you get 17 times more views than someone who doesn't. And so if you take a look at your profile and you've just got that, I know it's not an egg, it's not Twitter, but if you've just got a missing picture, that is going to be not only not opening up opportunities for you, but actually hurting your opportunities. So you need to make sure you get a good photo on your profile. Number two, you want to make sure that your education is on there. So we're all learning new things. We're all ND students and grads. So you want to make sure that it's updated with your most recent education. Those folks who have their education on there, 17 times more likely to show up in search. And the reason for that is because Google and LinkedIn are constantly crawling your profile to search for keywords. And a lot of what you study applies to your keywords. So you're going to just show up in search much more often. Location. A lot of times recruiters and hiring managers, they do location-based searches. They're not just saying, I need a developer, and they just open it up to the world. They're saying, I need someone who's local within this radius or outside the city. And so if you have a location, you'll be 23 times more likely to show up. And this brings up a lot of questions. What if you want to work remote? What if you're moving cities? We can get into that today. Typically, you want to put the location of where you want to be down, but just make sure you've got a location there because that'll help people find you. You want to have a great summary that speaks to your skills and your interests, your motivation, basically an elevator pitch. So the summary is probably the most ambiguous piece of the LinkedIn profile and something that will be different depending on your background, your skills, your goals, and everyone will be slightly different. Some people will be funnier, some people will be more serious, some people will have a lot of stats. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but you want to be pitching yourself in that summary because that's the first thing people are going to read. Then you're going to want to have a great headline and keyword. And this is kind of an interesting one because people struggle here too. You want to put the job title you wish you had, because here's how a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to look. They're going to sit down, they're going to type in the job title they're looking for, the city that they're looking in, and hit enter. And if you don't have that job title in your headline and that city in your profile, you're not going to show up in that search. So we don't want to have something like job seeking or seeking new opportunities, because no one ever types that in when they're searching for candidates. So we'll get into that a little bit more. And then activity. Activity is a big one. LinkedIn has not only been a great place to sort of store all of your career history and be a digital spot for your resume to sit, it's an interactive platform. So the more you're interacting, the more you're popping up in people's feeds, and the more people can see your face, the more they know who you are. And that's the whole point of social media, is from a marketing standpoint, visibility. If you never saw a Nike ad, Nike would eventually disappear and be replaced by other people that are being a little bit more out in the public and being seen. So Nike has to continue putting their name in front of you so you don't forget who they are. Same with us when we're doing the job search. We have to continue showing up, putting our face out there, and making sure people remember not only that we exist, but we are here to solve their problems. All right, so that was a real quick jump in, and now we're gonna jump into that live feedback. We've got Shannon and Dean, and I know Ellen's driving, so we're gonna let her hang back and not multitask too dangerously. But Shannon and Dean, I'd love Shannon for you to unmute first and introduce yourself, and then Dean, we will have you do the same.
Hey everyone, like I said, I'm Shannon. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland, and currently I'm actually an email developer. Actually majored in graphic design, did a lot of sort of learn code, mostly self-taught, partial like bootcamp or nano degree type courses online. And my career goals are to move into more of a front-end developer, front-end engineer type roles. I recently graduated from the Grow with Google Mobile Web Specialist Nano degree about a week ago. I'm really excited. And my next steps are to learn more JavaScript and Python. So I'm looking for a role that would sort of encompass some of that we learned in the Nano degree.
That is awesome. All right. And then Dean, if you can jump on and introduce yourself as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Dean. I'm a base engineer, about 20 years in industry, working with different U.S. government. About 2 years ago, I decided I want to refresh and retool my skills about mid-career. I left work and took on a machine learning data science bootcamp. And afterwards, I was looking to continue to learn, looking for online courses, and I found the Udacity self-driving car nano degree that just came out. I just recently graduated from that. Took me a while. Different things happening in life kind of put a delay on my progress. And now that I'm finished the nano degree, I'm preparing to re-enter the job force. Trying to transition from aerospace engineer into sort of vehicle autonomy engineer.
Wonderful. All right. And actually, Ellen is no longer driving, so she is going to be joining us as well and be taking a look at her profile. So Ellen, if you would like to introduce yourself and just jump on the call here.
Daddy.
Hey there.
Hi. Oh, hello everybody. It's morning here. So morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon? You're there?
It is. It is.
Yes. For now, I'm still a PhD student, but I plan to withdraw my study in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm more like an engineer, not a science. After I joined the PhD study, I found that I am an engineer, not a scientist. And that's so sad to find out. Yeah, I'm now a few days ago, take a part-time job, iOS developer. I spent 1 month. Actually, it's a part-time job. It cost me 20 hours per week to do an app. And yes, that's an internship job already done. So I'm looking for an iOS developer job, but I'm more interested to do a data science job or data engineer job. So you can look at my title here. Looking for a job, iOS developer and a data analyst.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely. And we'll dig into your profile in just a bit, but thank you so much for jumping on and introducing yourselves, Shannon, Dean, and Ellen. This is going to be a great conversation today. We're going to go into all your profiles, and we'll try and be quick with it, but we'll also try and be detailed. So feel free to bring up any big questions that are on your mind, and we'll be digging in. All right, so we're going to start with Shannon, and I've got your LinkedIn pulled up right here. But before we jump into your LinkedIn, you are a self-taught developer. You work as an email developer right now, and your background is in art and design. A couple of questions I have for you, and this is something for everyone to think about who's on the call. But before you go in and start updating things, right, the tactics of LinkedIn, this is, basics marketing strategy 101. Before you go out and start working on your tactics, you want to make sure you have the right strategy. Otherwise, we're just going to be constantly changing things on your profile every single week that you think of something new. So Shannon, a couple of questions for you before we jump in. Where are you looking for a job, like location-wise, city? What title are you most interested in? And what industry interests you the most?
Those are really good questions. As far as location-wise, I'm based in Maryland, so I'd like to stay local to that, but I am open to the idea of a remote role. And at first I didn't think there were a lot of remote tech developer jobs out there, but there seemed like there is a fair amount. So Maryland or remote would be my preference.
Great. And what about titles?
Titles, that is also a good one. Front-end developer is probably one I've been looking at the most. Sometimes I see the term front-end engineer, which I think alludes to maybe having more JavaScript or Python type knowledge. So something along those lines. But I was interested in doing like data scientist type thing, but I think I keep falling back to like front-end developer of some degree, or web developer, I guess, too.
Awesome. And are there any industries that really interest you?
That is also a good one. No real preference. I would say I keep looking at other tech companies. So I'm looking at places like GitHub, Gatsby, Trello, and I think was it Buffer? I think they're fully remote too. So I think I'm staying in like other tech companies
Awesome.
that have remote roles.
Yeah, so you're more focused on trying to find that remote gig than any specific industry.
Yeah.
One thing that's really interesting about the industry, and with all of these pieces, when chatting with folks about their career goals, it's hard to get specific, right? Because every time we see a new job listing, we want to jump and see if that's the one that we could get. And so it's like, oh, I want to be a front-end developer, but then I saw a back-end thing, or I saw data science, something else, and I got distracted and went down that road. What we want to do is start specific, go deep before we go broad. So if you think about the way most people do a job search, they get an email from LinkedIn, right? It says, here's all the new jobs today. And we go down that list and we go, maybe this one, maybe this one, maybe this one. And it kind of takes us in a scattered horizontal view of the job search, right? We're going from one unrelated job to another. So we might be like, oh, I'm looking at a front-end developer role at Nike, and then the next job is a back-end developer role at a bread company. Right? It's like, it's all over the place. So we want to get focused, go all the way to the bottom. So let's say front-end developer at communication tech companies. And then we go and look at every single communication tech company till we get to the bottom. And then we can try the next search. So maybe we didn't find something in that vertical, we can go to the next one on the list, maybe Nike or sports. And so that's just a quick tip before we jump in here. And to help you out, here is the entire list of industry codes that companies can use on LinkedIn to segment their, what industry they're in. So if you're curious, about dairy or design or e-learning, these are the codes that you'll want to look up as you're doing your search. And the reason that this is interesting is because you can start looking at what the companies are saying, what keywords they're using, and you can adjust your profile to match. Because the biggest thing about LinkedIn is that it's a great tool for SEO. If you want to be found, you have to say the right things. And so we need to know what the companies and the industries and the job titles that we're looking for are saying so we can go deep. All right, so I'm throwing a lot at you, but let's jump into your profile here. So you had mentioned that, you feel like you have some experience, but you're you're still trying to figure out like how to be more confident on LinkedIn and how to really take more control over your profile and make it look really great, what are the areas where you think you know, you want to focus the most, or you feel like could be stronger on your profile?
I definitely think that blurb section, the summary, the elevator pitch is where I'm definitely lacking right now. That's just some things I threw in there like the other day. And since I haven't been keeping this up to date, I don't really know what to put in there to speak to what I do or what I would like to do in the future. So I think that's probably would be like the biggest win for me, is to get that summary up in a good place.
Awesome. So yeah, we will definitely jump into that. And I know you had mentioned in our pre-call that, you know, you were really hoping, or you wish you had been keeping your profile more up to date on a regular basis, and instead of just getting to it at the start of a job search. And I think that that's something we can all feel out there. I think everyone wishes that they kept their resume and their LinkedIn and their cover letters and everything as up to date as possible. But usually it's when we're in crunch time that we got to go. So we'll dig into this. Before we do that, I want to point out a couple of great things about your profile. You have a really good headline here. You say you're a senior email developer. So you know, so when someone comes to your profile, they know exactly what you're working on and what you're capable of. You have, you know, your highlights and your activity. But the main thing here is your experience. You've got all of your experience. It's all linked to the company profile, so the images are coming up, although we got a freelance one here and some other things that won't necessarily pull up an image. And you've got some descriptions in all of these things. A lot of profiles don't have descriptions. We may want to work on consistency with these bullet points, because some have bullets and some don't. But in general, the fact that you have content in here is going to help boost your profile in the rankings. And so what we want to do is we want to kind of go through here and either just make it all consistent so it's easy to read, and then eventually we'll want to tailor all the descriptions here to be more focused on the types of keywords and jobs that you want to be doing in the future. You've got your education here all the way up to date. And you've got some great volunteer experience, which also shows that you're going out and you're doing even more. Your skills section has some great stuff in it, but I have a feeling you have more skills than just this. So we'll want to probably revisit that and add more skills as well. And recommendations, it's awesome that you have some great recommendations here. One thing I've heard from a handful of recruiters is that they are not as interested in recommendations. They're more interested in these skills here and the descriptions. And I'm realizing I'm taking a long time on these profiles, so I'm going to jump right back up here and we're going to get into your summary. So in your summary, you start by saying hi, and you talk about yourself, and then you mention a few of your speaking engagements. So this tells me a few things. It shows me that you're outgoing, and it shows me that you are going out and speaking, which means you have good presence, good presentation skills, and things of that sort. Now, one thing you want to think about when it comes to the summary is you want to make it very, you want to describe who you are, but you want to focus on the person who's reading your profile and what their needs are. So as you think about this, being a email and front-end developer, what are the problems you're able to solve for other people? Rather than saying what you've done in the past, this is your ability to say what you hope to do in the future for others. So just take a second and maybe brainstorm out loud. What are some of the problems that you're able to solve through email and front-end developer roles?
That's a good one. I think one that I run into is sort of consistency across your digital landscapes. Like if you, theoretically, if you're opening an email from a company, you're clicking a link, you're going to a web page or something like that. Sometimes there's a disconnect between those experiences. And sometimes the email experience from like a design or a content or, you know, mobile user perspective is just not great at all. Like some companies are great at it, others are very terrible at it. So having that insight about just what recipients are doing or how they're viewing email, I think a lot of companies could benefit from that.
That's awesome. So that is a key benefit that you're able to bring to a company that you can call out in the summary section. So instead of saying, hey, this is my name and this is what I'm experienced in, you can say, as an email and front-end developer, I work to help companies build consistent visuals that help their audience better engage and better interact with their products. My background is with Grow with Google, Udacity, and here are some speaking events where I've actually taken this stuff into the real world and engaged with, so on and so forth. I'm getting a little bit markety with it, but what do you think of that kind of approach to your summary and how it's clicking in your head?
No, I mean, that sounds good. I'm taking notes as we're talking here, but you're right. It's good to say it. I mean, what I've done or what I can do will come up more, I guess, as they go into the later parts of my summary, but to speak to like, here's what I can do, here's what I specialize in, that's probably more attention grabbing than just what I have currently.
Absolutely, because you might find that folks out there are like, wow, our brand is really disconnected. We've got all these different things going on, and if you're the person that can bring it all together, make it look good and make it engaging, that's going to be a great way to go. And you've got that design background to back it up as well. So we're gonna keep moving forward and jumping into the other profiles, but thankfully this is recorded, so we can always come back and take a look. But I do think when you're thinking about your profile, try to make it more about the problems you solve and how you can help other people, and then back up your ability to solve problems with your experience. That's the best way to showcase what you've done in relationship with what you can be doing. All right.
Thank you.
So, absolutely. And we'll open this up for questions later too. So I know there's a bunch of questions coming in, but now we will jump into Dean. Dean, your profile, how are you feeling about it? And where do you think you want the most focus?
Hi, Martin. Yeah, I feel that right now my profile is decent. I feel I have a lot of information there. I would like to try to get feedback regarding, is it too much information? Should I condense it somehow and summarize it? Or since people, when they go to look at your LinkedIn, typically they want to get more information as opposed to looking at your resume. I do have my resume linked up top as well. That maybe the amount of detail I have is appropriate for people to dig in further to learn more about myself.
That is a great question, Dean. Thanks so much. So I actually, looking through your profile, you're right. You do have a lot of great information and it's consistent. You've got bullet points going through each one. You've even got media for all of your roles, which is a really big thing that LinkedIn is allowing us to do now, linking to videos and projects and things of that sort within each one of our roles. So when it comes to your question, is it too much? That's one that I'm sure can be debated. But when it comes to your LinkedIn profile, this isn't your resume. Your resume, you want to get it down to a page because honestly, no one's going to read more than a few. They're going to skim it or just kind of briefly go through the one page. But with your LinkedIn, that is like, this is basically your place online for people to see everything you've done in your career. So it's okay to have a lot of information. The question is the information you're putting on here relevant to what you're hoping to do in the future as well? So what you might want to do is go back through some of these descriptions that you may not have looked at since you originally put them in, right? And see, is this still relevant? Or can I update the language to be more relevant to what I want to be doing in the future? And so let's say you developed, integrated, and tested multiple real-time human-in-the-loop, hardware-in-the-loop, physics-based aircraft simulation systems. Well, from our previous conversations, you're still interested in the aerospace and robotics space, so this is definitely still relevant and something that should be kept on your profile. And so I do think that that's a great question, and definitely one where too much information when it comes to these descriptions here probably isn't a big worry. It's okay to have too much. The main thing is make sure, go and look at some profiles, some job listings, and make sure the keywords that are in the job listings you hope to have are also included in your profile. So as you're taking a look here, I just want to make sure we're doing good on time. As you're taking a look here, you say, I'm an experienced mechanical and aerospace engineer. You support NASA, and you've got a lot of great stuff here. So you've got some hands-on tinkering. All right, so I actually think your summary is really strong. I like that you linked to your resume. You might be able to break it up a little bit so it's easier for people to read and consume, But overall, I like that you put your skills up in the summary, C++, Python, and things of that sort. And I think you've got a really great, strong profile here. So as you're sort of thinking about what you want to do next, let's answer those questions for you as well. Where are you looking? What title do you want and what interests you?
Yes, I'm located in the California, San Francisco Bay Area. So I'm looking to stay locally, though I'm open potentially to remote. Though the type of work I'm looking at, I think a lot of it probably requires me to be in person to do system integration, hardware, software. So I'm expecting to be staying local. The title I want, I left out my LinkedIn profile, a kind of generic vehicle autonomy engineer, since I can get into cars, aircraft, ships, underwater submarine, all those will apply, hence I kind of left it generic. If I would, based on your earlier recommendation when discussing with Shannon, if I want to get very specific, perhaps maybe a vehicle control and path planning engineer perhaps will be the area. But then, you know, it's one of those things where I want everything as well. Yeah. I want to learn about a lot of other, you know, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to learn about computer vision, about data fusion and such. And because I feel those are all related to be an effective vehicle autonomy engineer. I do need to, you know, can't be too fixated on one area. And then what's the last? Oh yeah, industry. So coming from aerospace, most of the entity I support in the past has been government entities. And I'm also looking to transition from government into private sector. Vehicle autonomy, aircraft autopilot that I worked with in the past, sort of a UI UX for aircraft cockpit, your flight control integration with human in there. Yeah, so even though those sounds very much similar, it is also very different. Up in the air, you don't have potential kids running out of the street getting in front of the aircraft. So the type of technical focus are different.
Absolutely. So I think you've got a really good view here. I think maybe one of the things that you could put in your summary is saying, you know, you have a background in more governmental work and you're really excited to bring these skills into the private sector. And so by calling that out and saying like, here's what I've helped government do and here's how I can help in the private sector, you might be able to make that connection. But I think the bigger thing is to really narrow in on job titles. Again, you don't want to miss out, but one of the weird things about not making a decision is that that is in and of itself a decision. So we have to choose something, put it in your profile, and this is the great thing about LinkedIn. You can update your title, spend a month looking for that title, seeing if you find anything. And if you get to the bottom of like the well with that title and you find, oh wait, I talked to 7 people and this job doesn't sound like what I want, delete it, put in a new title and give that one a shot. And so you're kind of allowing yourself to be flexible, but also be specific so that you can focus your job search and not be scattered too much. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome.
The other question I have, if you're ready to take that, or do you want to come back?
I think we need to jump to Ellen, but let's bring it back to the question section. All right, so we'll come back to that one in just a sec. Thank you so much. Ellen, how are you doing?
Good.
All right. So you are multilingual, you're located in New Zealand, and you're a Data Foundations ND grad. I noticed that when I first went to your profile the other day, it was half in English. Yeah, so it's still here. I know you have a couple different languages on your profile here. So this is something I think is really interesting because as we're putting together these profiles, you never really know how it's going to show up on the other person's side. Now, LinkedIn allows you to say like, view my profile from another perspective. So if you actually go to your homepage, you'll see that you're able to do that. But also one thing to notice about Google and any web page, and you probably all know this, but just in case you don't, you can translate any page so that it comes up in the way that you need it to be. However, when it comes to building your profile, I'm curious from your perspective, have you seen, what was it like when you put your profile together and how does it look on your end?
English and the Chinese mixed.
Yeah.
And but just LinkedIn, when I created my company I served before, it's a Chinese company, so the name all Chinese. I don't know how to change it to English because when you choose the Chinese company name, it's a Chinese version, not English. So I think it's a LinkedIn problem. I don't know
It
how
could be. It very well could be. And this is something I'm not as well experienced with. So if it's something that anyone on this call is experienced with, please put it in the chat and share any thoughts you have. But one thing you might want to do is in your summary, call that out. Say, I've worked with Chinese companies in the past, so, but I'm looking to work, I believe since you're in New Zealand, are you looking to work with English-speaking companies in the future?
Yes.
Okay, so you might want to call out, like, if you're having trouble viewing this page, right-click and translate. Let Google Translate so you can see everything below. All right, so that might be a really good thing to call out. And then another thing here, going back to our points about LinkedIn profiles, we need to get a picture of you in here in order to increase your visibility on LinkedIn.
I think it's a LinkedIn problem because I have a picture. I have a picture in my version. I have a picture.
Oh, maybe I'm a second connection and it's not showing up. That could be it. But on your end, you're saying you do see it?
Yes, I have a picture, and recently there are problems I found in LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a few different network. When I add someone, they said you are not in direct network, so we cannot add connect friends or something. So maybe I'm still in China network.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, that's definitely something to look into. Go ahead.
Do you guys see my pictures? I have pictures in here.
On my end, I'm not able to see it. So that's actually a really interesting thing to call out. And so if you go to your LinkedIn profile here, one thing that you're going to want to do is, and this is for everyone on the call, you're going to want to say, you're going to want to go to one of these call outs where it lets you view your profile. They moved it on me, so I'm trying to remember where they put it here. Here we go. All right, so it looks like we can add our profile in another language. That might help with your language translation. And there is a section, and I'm sorry I'm not finding it right now since a few things have moved around, but we'll want to figure out how to view our profile so the way other people see it, so that we can come back and take a look and make sure it's showing up how we want online. Does that sound good?
I think if you go to the top right and click on edit public profile, scroll up. There should be an option that says edit public profile.
All right. In her profile? Oh, in my profile. All right, now my picture's not coming up. All right, so it looks like something weird is going on with LinkedIn right now. Oh, there it is. All right. So this is where you can go to. Well, now it's not showing up. All right, so, and I don't want to get us too derailed here, and maybe we follow up after the call to make sure that we're looking at the right stuff here. But in general, what we want to do is we want to make sure that our profile has a summary that talks about the problems that we solve, has content on it, and a title that reflects the job that we want to have, and has a photo and all the necessary information and is translated in the way that we want it to be translated. And if we can't change that on the back end, put a note in the summary to say, right-click and translate profile in order to view all the details below. So those are 3 takeaways. And then I want to jump into the next part of our call here. For anyone else who would like some feedback on their profile. So All right, we got about 126 folks still on the call here. Add your name into the chat, post a link to your LinkedIn profile, and Karen will take a look through, and she will call out and see if anyone wants to share their information. And actually, this might be one where we merge it with the Q&A, since we are running a little short on time. So we might pull up your profile, or we might just answer your questions as they come up. So feel free to add your questions in the chat. And I've got a bunch here that I'm going to start us off with. All right, our first question here. If I'm not working now, is it better to write that I'm self-employed? So this is a big question, and something that we've seen come up on a few different profiles, which is a lot of times when we're searching for a job, we put seeking a job, or we put open to new opportunities, or we put different things in the profile. The problem is that our headline is actually a search tool. It's not so much what we want people to see, it's what we want people to be able to search. So if I'm online and I'm searching for a new employee to do my front-end web development, I'm going to search for front-end web developers. And if that's not in your headline, you might not show up in my search. So we don't want to put unemployed or anything like that in that headline, or even self-employed, since that's the question. Should I say that I'm self-employed? You should put in your experience section, let's say you're working on a project right now. You want to put down whatever your business name might be, whether it's a blog page or your GitHub page or whatever it might be. And that's what you're currently working on. And you list out all the projects, all the education, everything that you're currently doing today, so that there's not a gap there. And you want to be very clear that, I'm developing this skill set. So you're not trying to fake it. You're not trying to say, oh, I have a job when I don't. You're just saying, at this time, in this window of however many months that I've been searching for a job, here is what I'm working on. And by doing that, you can actually give yourself that title, which will show up in your headline. And that's going to be the thing that allows people to find your profile, see that you are either working for yourself, or maybe it's your own personal name, maybe it's a blog you created, whatever the thing might be. Maybe it's a cool project you worked on in an open source community. And that's going to be your most recent experience that you get to reference. All right, next question here. How important are skill endorsements? I believe having all your skills listed, and we'll scroll down just to the skill section here. So I believe having a very robust skills section where you do include everything that is related to the job that you want is extremely important, because this all gets crawled for the SEO. Now, having tons of endorsements on each skill, I don't think that has as big of an impact as just having the skill on your profile. So one thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that the skills are here and ranked how you want them to rank. You can actually move these around. It doesn't rank it by the number of endorsements. It ranks it by how you rank it. So when you go in here, take a look and re-rank your skills the way that you want them to appear on your profile. All right, our next question. What should we do for the location section if we need or want to continue working remotely? I see the options are only based on zip code. So you put that in, when it comes to your location, you put your current location, or if you know you're moving in the next 6 months, you can put your future location. And then what you want to do is in your summary, write open to remote work, or flexible, or location flexible, things of that sort that call out that you're a remote person. And maybe even in your job title, if you're currently a remote worker, put remote in your job title. That way it'll show up in results if someone wants to search for a remote worker. But typically people aren't searching for remote work. It's a conversation that you need to have when you're applying for a role or getting an offer in order to find that remote job. How do I organize my data as per my timeline or work as per my field relevancy? I assume this means, like, should I put my education first? Should I put anything else first? The key thing you want to do here is you want to put the thing most relevant to what you're trying to do first. So if your education, let's say this is your most relevant thing, feel free to put it above. But if you've been working in a field that's similar to what you want to be doing in the future, feel free to put that above. But I would say either experience or education are the first two things that should show. What do I do when I have a gap of 7 years from my last role? This is a really big question, and it's quite specific to the person. But if you have 7 years of a gap, one of my questions would be, what did you do during those 7 years? Were you a mother, staying at home, raising a family? Were you volunteering for any causes? Did you have any part-time or contract or other type of work? Were you part of any organizations? Is there anything we can do to fill in that space? And one of those things will be a relatable story. So let's say, you know, you're a stay-at-home mother raising a family. There's a ton of skills that come from that apply to your next job. And the other thing to think about is that there are tons and tons of organizations that exist for mothers to get back into the workforce. And so you want to tap into those markets because they aren't going to worry so much about that 7-year gap. And they're going to be actually look at it as a positive because they've seen other people with similar backgrounds do great work. So whatever your history might be, there is a community to tap into on LinkedIn. Go take a look at some of the groups and some of the groups that are out. Yeah, take a look at some of the groups that are out there, and you know, own what happened. Don't just ignore it. Don't just assume people won't ask. They'll think about it. So it's good to have your answers well practiced. What is the best way to showcase work outside of job roles, meaning personal projects, speaking engagements, volunteer work, etc.? Well, there is a great volunteer section on your profile. So if you scroll down, you can actually see that. Let's see, I think Dean had a very good volunteer section here. So, education, am I going too quick? I'm missing it. But there is a section for volunteer work, and that will be a good place to put in accomplishments and things like this. Another thing that's really great to do is start a personal project. So if you have like a little side project that you want to just put all of your volunteer work into, that's a great thing to do. It actually, you can put that in your experience section, and you can really showcase, oh, not only am I doing my normal job, but I'm also doing speaking engagements, and I'm doing, you know, I'm running a meetup, let's say. You can put that meetup in your experience or in your volunteer section, either one, and showcase that not only do you do your day-to-day role, but you also are building community outside of it, or whatever it is you might be doing. All right, I know we're coming to the last 5 minutes or so here, so I'm going to try and get through some more of these questions. Are there any no-nos about updating your LinkedIn profile when you are currently employed and don't want your current employer to know? Well, there is a great setting on everyone's profile whenever you're making an update that says, do you want to share this with your network? So LinkedIn has done a great job of actually making it easier for you to control what does and doesn't get shared. I know back in the day, they used to share every little thing someone would change on their profile, and you get a dozen notifications from people. They've done a good job cleaning up their side, and we've done a good job cleaning up our side. But just make sure whenever you're making an update to your headline or something, you look at that little toggle button and say you do or don't want to share it. If you don't want to share it, just don't share it, update your profile. And companies, it depends on the company you're working for. Some don't care, some are always looking. I would say more don't care than are always looking. But a key thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure whatever you're updating, you know, you should always be updating your LinkedIn. It shouldn't be every 3 years. So if you get confronted about it, just be like, yeah, I'm just making sure things are being updated as I go. And I want to jump ahead real quick because I got a little deep into the Q&A here. But if you are a current student, a really important thing to do is to get your project in for review for the deadline. So we have a number of students who are on this call, and your deadlines are as follows. November 6th, Google AdWords. November 10th, computer vision. 19th, flying car. 20th, artificial intelligence. 25th, front end. 27th, deep reinforcement learning. And 28th, robotics. And so what you want to do here is go to this link, and we'll send it out. and it's going to give you the option to submit your profile. So you're going to change your visibility, you're going to get your URL, you're going to hit submit project, go to submission. All you have to do is submit your link. So let's say you don't feel very strong about your profile right now and you want to update it before you submit it. I would actually encourage you to submit it first, because it's better to get it in and start getting feedback, and then you can build on that feedback rather than trying to get it perfect before you submit for feedback. If you have a profile that's got content on it, it's a good thing to start getting feedback. So go here, submit that link, and you'll start getting some really great feedback. Get it in before your deadline, because that's a really important piece in order to stay eligible and make sure that you've got that all in. Once you do this, you'll get some really good feedback. You can see in these slides here, they're going to break down each one of your sections, and they're going to tell you exactly what you need to know in order to improve your profile. So this is going to be extremely important, and just, it's great for us to talk about it, but it's even better to get an expert in your industry to look at it with a much more focused pair of eyes. All right, and then I'm going to wrap up with a couple more questions here. I'm taking a look real quick. I just graduated from the front-end web dev nano degree, but I have no experience in the field. How do I attract employers to my profile if all my experience is in different fields? So the keywords used in my job education description will be from different fields. That's a great question. This is where your volunteer work, your personal projects, your skills section, and your headline come into play. You want to make sure your headline is talking about the job that you wish you had. You want to make sure that your experience or your volunteer work represents all of the projects that you've been working on your own time. And also, by talking about those projects, you'll be talking about the keywords and different things that this new role is looking for. You want to make sure you update your skills section with all the right information. And really, in your summary, say, here's how my background is going to help inform my future. So one of my favorite phrases is, I've merged a background in this topic with my recent work in this topic in order to accomplish these things for clients. So someone recently said, I merged my newfound interest in development with a background in management to help companies install Salesforce CRM systems. And so that's their, like, boom, I got my past experience, my current experience, and the thing I help companies do. So it's just a great way to think about putting a profile together if you are entering into a new space. All right, so finally, before we wrap up today, I just want to say, please, please, please go here. If you are a current student, go submit your profile. It takes just a couple of minutes. It's a copy and paste. It's real fast, and you will be done, and you won't have to think about this anymore in the future. And if you'd like to connect, my name is Martin McGovern. I am on LinkedIn, as you can see here. And I look forward to watching all of your profiles improve and seeing you all crush it in your job search. All right, that was a lot, and we got it just done in time. Thank you all for joining me and joining us on this call. I will stick around for the next 5 or so minutes as people wrap up, and if any other questions come in, maybe we can touch on them. But give yourselves a round of applause. I know everyone's muted. I hope it's been good in the chat. I've kind of got a narrow view on my end. Awesome, wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining. Looks like you're all jumping off now. I'll hang on until everyone is logged out. And I hope you're all connecting with each other with all the profiles that you shared.